What is up, Nerfers? Welcome back to the nap. I'm assuming that I am unmuted immediately. That might have been cut off at the beginning. Blah, 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 blah. What's up? We're back. Josh, how are we doing today?
We are doing, man. I got to be honest. I'm surprised it took us this long to talk about the Snyder Cut. It feels like it came out forever ago. I've already seen it twice.
All right, let's be fair. You didn't want to say shit until we actually got together to go live.
I know.
I messaged
but it
you
still
as soon-
feels like it's been. I've been aching to talk to you about this. Aching.
I messaged you as soon as I was done. I was like, all right, here we go. I messaged you as soon as I started. And I went through this 4-hour motherfucker like a man, like in one go, one sitting.
I wish you would have,
like a lot of people did.
Apparently, you and was it Leslie Jones from SNL? You guys were watching like at the exact same time because she was live tweeting like every 5 minutes. It was hilarious. So I was like, oh, I wish Seth was doing this because then I could watch it with him. But no.
So I had this whole plan out to like let you know that I was starting it, and then wait approximately like 4.5 hours or so. And then message something back to you saying like mediocre 4 out of 10 or something like that, just to get your blood boiling. Like I was planning on like trying to piss you off just a little bit before I told you what my actual review was. And I'll be straight up in a non-spoiler fashion. I will say if you felt cheated when you watched the original Justice League, I'm not even going to say the original Justice League. Let's say the
2017 Justice League or the
2017
League,
version with Joss Whedon's involvement. If you felt cheated by that one, or you felt like it didn't go the direction that you wanted it to go, or that it should have gone, through all of my favorite term, the administrative fuckery that was going on, go and watch the Snyder Cut, and it will paint a new picture for Justice League for you.
Are we just jumping right in? Should I put like the
I'm doing a non-spoiler talk because I want to jump into spoiler talk like right away. First of all, this is a movie that's quite old, so
wait a second. Hold up. If we're not doing any opening stories, I gotta address
opening stories.
I know. I just gotta dress this up a little bit here. Give me 1 second. We're underdressed for any topic.
I'm just chit-chatting before there's any screens up on here.
I know.
I'm going to say to our people that...
I'm just saying. There we go.
Oh,
now we can talk about the Snyder Cut. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I was talking no spoilers, and there's a spoiler on this screen.
Well, sorry.
There's a few spoilers on this screen if you really want to get into it. In a non-spoiler fashion, I need to say, just look at this screen that we've got up here. It's very pretty. Josh did a great job. And go and watch this. Maybe don't watch it in 4 straight hours like I did. Take some bathroom breaks, get some food,
or
whatever you got to do.
It'd be a challenge.
The big thing here, okay, wow, all right. Snyder's Justice League was better than the Avengers finale. Not a fanboy of either. Less filler and fluff and to the point with the aforementioned. I'm going to disagree a little bit, but we'll get into that.
I don't disagree, Jared.
I don't disagree 100%. I'm just not fully on board there. Go and watch it. Have your faith in humanity restored for just a brief moment that Zack Snyder did in fact know what he was doing, and that it was going in a good direction until all that administrative fuckery came in. And then Joss Whedon, who I don't even want to blame fully, because we know that the WB had a lot of shit going on here that was probably causing a lot of this stuff. But yeah, do you want to say anything in a non-spoiler fashion, Josh?
I just think that this is the original Justice League, and we may get caught up in saying that a couple times on mistake because, we think of the original as the first one, and the 2017 one, a lot of people are going to be like, oh, that's the original. And this is just some guy's take on it. It's not. It is the original version of this. It feels like the original version. And, the truth of the matter is, if you're not a Snyder fan, my dog's snoring like crazy. Hey, calm down over there. If you're not a Snyder fan, if you hated the first two Snyder movies, Man of Steel and Batman v Superman, yeah, you're probably not going to like this. You're probably not. However, I know a couple people, one in particular who's a completist, and he actually liked this movie. And he said that this was the first Snyder movie in the DC universe that he actually did like. Don't be alarmed by the 4-hour runtime. We live in a day and age of limited series where we have 4 to 6 to 8 hour movies cut up into episodes. And up until recently, a lot of those series were coming out all at once. You know, people were mad in the last 6 months that they couldn't binge The Boys season 2, you know, one after another. This year they decided to go weekly instead of what they did last year, drop it all at once. People were upset that they couldn't binge The Mandalorian back to back. WandaVision was driving people crazy. Had those shows dropped in their completism, a lot of y'all that are complaining about this 4-hour runtime would have been watching those way into, you know, the early mornings of Saturday morning if you had the chance. So, you know, this is split up into parts, but, you know, if you don't want to see it, no one's forcing you to see it. But if you're intrigued, I think that there's a good chance that you might be surprised at this movie. Even if you're coming at it as not a fan of the director or of the property itself.
I will say they split it up rather well, as far as separating things out, so it's not like this gigantic mess or anything like that, and you don't get like thrown off in a bunch of different directions. Like its splits are very cohesive.
Yes,
because it was originally intended to be a miniseries, or not even a miniseries, just like an episodic thing as far as the way that they released it onto the platform until contract shit got in the way.
Yes. So when they announced that it was coming to HBO Max, they were going to do a limited series format. Whether it would have been, 6 episodes or 4 episodes or whatever, that was their plan. And I think a lot of people would have been fine with that. And maybe these runtime things wouldn't be such of an issue. However, like Seth just said, and we lost his camera there. The original.
I muted it. I'm putting away food, and I didn't want to be rude.
Gotcha. Like Seth just said, we did have these contracts where all these major actors signed these contracts initially for a movie, and it's that specific. If you change something and it's no longer a movie, they have to go back to those people with those contracts and get new signatures. And guess what? It's now a big commodity now. So, those agents are going to be negotiating and everything like that. So in order to avoid all that and just release it, they release it as a 4-hour movie. But yes, there's title cards. There's like a prologue. There's like 6 chapters and an epilogue. So if you wanted to, you could pause it at the title card of your choice, take a break, come back and watch it. But yeah, the 4-hour complaint thing isn't really valid to me, considering how many people are mad anytime they're not able to binge an entire series after Netflix has pampered us, for so long. So, and not to mention, this was originally shot to be a 2-parter. When Snyder originally shot this back in 2015, 2016, it's not like he just went off and made a 4-hour movie and the WB was like, what? You made 4-hour movies? We can't do that. I think a lot of people just, putting that on Snyder, like, well, how could he have made a 4-hour movie? Of course, they would have never released that in theaters. That's what the WB ordered. And initially, if you all remember, there were talks about Justice League Part 1, Part 2. And so, yes, we would have never gotten a 4-hour cut in theaters. And yes, a few bits of the epilogue were shot for this special release on HBO Max. But the majority of this was shot back in 2015, 2016. It feels complete.
Well, I think that about does it. I think you should throw that spoiler tag up there.
Absolutely.
I mean, we already titled it Spoiler Talk, so I would hope that that's enough. But rather than risk it. So, in full preparation of today's episode, so we did our watch parties. Like, we watched Man of Steel, we watched Wonder Woman, we watched Batman versus Superman. And we had our complaints there towards the end, specifically. But that was based off of knowledge that we had of where they go with Justice League. I had not seen Justice League in a while. Very much like Batman versus Superman. It was my first time in a little while watching that. So I rewatched Justice League today while I was at work. It was on in the background, but I watched the 2017 version. And man, was that irritating. Because the whole a comment that somewhat summarizes how I felt about this movie is that it fixed almost all of the context issues that Justice League had. Now, 4 hours is a long time, and if I'm being completely honest, I don't think that they needed that 4 hours. I don't necessarily know what all they would cut, but I'm sure that you could find 45-ish minutes in there that were not absolutely necessary. I was surprised to see some stuff in there that I was specifically surprised to see that the end credit scene with Deathstroke and Lex Luthor was still in there. I honestly thought that was something that Whedon or WB had added in the end.
Well, Whedon clearly had reshot some of it because the dialogue's different.
That was another thing, is that watching the original Justice League, it was very apparent in the difference in styles, seeing the stuff that got added, even on scenes that were already shot with Snyder, the way that he had to adjust them. That was pretty irritating, specifically because it was like CGI issues. If I had to pick something that I would have cut from this, and a reason I wanted to throw this spoiler on here, and I'm summarizing for a reason, because I really don't think that it makes sense to go episodic through here, because it's 4 hours long. We'll be here forever. Is actually the little guy that's sitting right about here on my screen. I don't know that the Martian Manhunter was integral to this story. And so that was one thing that didn't vibe with me too well. As far as runtime, like, I didn't dislike it. I was just like, I don't know that we needed that. It was cool. It was cool that he's included, and it made me Google him to find out more about him, because I didn't know much about him. He's made some appearances in some video game clips that I've watched, but not much beyond that. But yeah, he wasn't. It wasn't like a oh shit moment for me. But that's probably because I didn't come from like the DC side of things. I've always been a Marvel guy, so I didn't have a rich history of this character. So that might have been a fan service moment. Just didn't work on me because I'm not that deep in it. And then the other issue that I had, which is really the only other real glaring issue for me, and it might be explained away by somebody who has more knowledge of things, but it was specifically around some of the scenes with Steppenwolf, one in particular, where I gotta remember where exactly he was at this point. I think it was after. So we had the origin story of Darkseid coming to Earth and having the great battle. We get Steppenwolf, who goes and he smashes his hammer into the ground, and he, for the second time, reveals the anti-life equation. And then it's handled in that moment like it was this super huge secret, even though Darkseid had already been there. He had already been there. The mother boxes were separated there and left there. I would think that they would make a mental note of what planet they were on. But it seems like it had just... I know it was a long time. It was a long time. Who knows what knowledge was left of them. Maybe they left in such a panic that they couldn't jot down, like, hey, the mother boxes are here, but also happens to be the fucking thing that we want more than anything else, the anti-life equation. It's also here. And Steppenwolf found it. Like, I don't know. Like that just hit me weird that it was and honestly that's a small thing. That's really a small critique that it was just a and again it could be super easily explained away. But unfortunately, we're probably not going to get any continuations of this particular story. Because as far as Warner Brothers is concerned, this is definitely not considered canon in their handling of the franchise for the future. But it was those two things. It was Martian Manhunter being in there when I didn't really think that he needed to be, and then their weird handling of the anti-life equation being found again and acting like it was this big surprise, even though he had been there before, had a pretty epic major battle, and the mother boxes were left there. They were able to find the mother boxes again. I don't know. It just created this weird inconsistency for me. It was really tough to kind of handle that. And then in super short summary, my absolute favorite thing was that Flash and Cyborg actually got to be real fleshed out characters in this one. Because I like rewatching Justice League today. Barry Allen was just in there to get kind of shit on his comic relief, and not in a like positive light. Almost, it almost seemed like he was just like being like not quite as much as Cyborg was, but Barry just seemed to be only there for comic relief in the 2017 version. This time around, and he was also a lot more meek in the like he didn't want to battle. He was afraid of bugs. He was like a neurotic mess. And this one, he was like he was a hero. He was just like it was like he was coming into the team for the first time. That was great. And then Cyborg got treated way better this time around. The amount of respect, like he was my favorite character throughout this one. Like I identified with Cyborg more than any other character in this version. And then I watched the original Justice League, and it was just like there were so many things where it's like, why would you? How much of it was reshot? How much of this was there that Joss Whedon decided to cut out? I was like, it was incredible to see this stark contrast between the two of them so aggressively. And I'm also insanely happy that they decided to cut out that stupid interview on the cell phone with Superman at the beginning of the movie, because that was, I hated that. I absolutely hated that. I'm glad somebody agrees with me on Martian Manhunter. That's great. But those are my quick summaries of like my biggest issues and my favorite things. Just in kind of like short bullet points. I'm sure there's counterpoints to some of the stuff that I had there, but yeah. Martian Manhunter, Darkseid should have at least jotted down where he was when he found the anti-life equation the first time. And fuck Warner Brothers for disrespecting the characters of Flash and Cyborg in the first one when the potential was there. Like, didn't look at his notes. Like, didn't like what the fuck? I was team Cyborg for this one, big time.
All right, guys. Well, that's our review of Zack Snyder's Justice League.
I've got so much more.
You just went into like summary mode. So
well, I wanted to get it out there first because I know we've got viewers who are probably like gonna skim through these podcasts to try and find certain talking points. That is what we're gonna be. That's what I'm gonna be like praising the most.
Oh my gosh, Jared is.
All right, you got it, Seth. I concur on the Flash and Cyborg. Cyborg was a beast. Yes, he goddamn was. His abilities were more potential than kinetic, unfortunately. I really wanted to see Cyborg do way more. I think we need a Cyborg standalone. We do.
This was definitely setting that up. Well, let me address some of the things you said first, and then I'll get into my thoughts as well. So, first of all, let's talk about the. Well, it's not a rebuttal, but it is. There were things.
Rebuttal doesn't mean negative, Josh.
I'm filling you in here. So,
okay,
on the anti-life equation, there was a line because I caught that too, and then on second watch, I picked up on it.
I forgot you watched it twice.
Maddie wanted to watch it, so I watched it with her.
Beast.
So when Wonder Woman is talking, when she's going back and telling the story about Darkseid's first visit, which was like thousands upon thousands of years ago.
Right.
Upon his exit, there was a line about the three mother boxes were left behind, and they shut themselves off, and there was something about the obscurity of their location, like because they were separated and left behind, then their location themselves was just like lost to the galaxy forever. And it was suggesting kind of basically that Darkseid was young, that he was just going planet after planet, but that he was connected to the mother boxes. And because he lost connection to the mother boxes, he lost the wherever the location of Earth was, even though Desaad was like, yes, we all know this story. So somehow there's the story out there, but yeah, they lost the location of Earth. It's not very well explained. It's like two lines that hints to it, but they could have explained it better. So I agree with you on that point, especially since they show the same scene of hitting the hammer or hitting the axe and the equation showing up.
And
but
the hand through the dirt, like it was a mirror moment.
It's very mirrored, and he was having that premonition through the mother box. So it was something about the mother boxes had shut themselves off when they were left behind, and their location and the location of Earth was kind of lost in the obscurity of the universe, to be found later again. And perhaps that's why he was sending Steppenwolf to claim 50,000 worlds, because he had lost track of that. Is that a little lazy? Yes, but at least there was that line about it.
It was just it was laziness in a 4-hour movie. I'm like,
yeah. Well, as far as Martian Manhunter, two things about that. One, the scene that was originally shot, because I believe the Martian Manhunter scene in the epilogue was shot for this release, but the scene where he's Martha and then he turns into himself, that was part of the original release. This was back in the day when Warner Brothers wanted a universe, and so they were asking Snyder to put in things for world building. Now think of how many Marvel movies there are and how many little scenes there are in those movies that are building up other things. Like Age of Ultron, you could have easily cut Thor's little side journey to the jacuzzi cave where he had the whole premonition about the Infinity Stones, but Marvel wanted that in there to set up their future movies. WB was doing the same thing. So he wasn't going to cut that out for this because that was in the original release. Also, this is HBO Max. This isn't going into a theater. So yes, there's plenty of things that could have been cut short. I think maybe not 45 minutes, but they could have probably done a 3-hour, 30-minute cut if they took out some of the slow-mo, if they cut some of the scenes shorter, because you notice that some of the scenes hung on a little longer. But the fact that this was coming out on HBO Max, why? Just let Snyder do it. Let it be its completest thing. And it's going to, if this was releasing in theaters, they could have probably cut about 30 minutes off. But in this case, who cares? It's coming out on streaming. Who gives a shit? And especially when they were thinking on doing episodes, those would have helped the length of the episodes. So I don't think, I really don't care about some of those scenes. I didn't consider it vital to the story at all, but I thought it was nice. But I could have seen, if this went out in the theater, I could have seen that whole scene being in there, except for the Martian Manhunter reveal. Like they just cut it straight in the, when she walks out the door, and then that's the end of the scene. Because it was a great scene otherwise. The Martha and Lois scene was so much more impactful in this movie than the break room at the Daily Planet version in the 2017 cut. And that brings me to my main thing, is that I'm never going to watch the 2017 version again, but I remember most of it. And now seeing this, it's crazy to me that, we'll address it. We'll address it, Jared. I'm not going to put your comment up on there yet, but we're definitely going to address some of that stuff. It's crazy to me that I know one thing for certain, is that when the WB brought in Joss Whedon, they said, 2 hours, that's it. Even though they had ordered a 4-hour or a double feature movie. They said 2 hours, which is crazy because some of Marvel's best movies are over 2 hours. So I don't know why they were honing in on that 2-hour version. But instead of just hiring an editor and being like, look, I know this is going to be a task, but we need to cut as much of this shit down to 2 hours as possible. And if we need to film a couple more things or maybe, do some dubs or whatever, let's do it to make it flow. But we got to get down to 2 hours. Instead of just doing that, they spent millions of dollars on reshoots of the same scenes for like no reason. There's no real impact or changes. It was just like Joss wanted his fingerprints on it.
There's a lot, honestly. So I now remember I watched these back to back. So I saw these stark contrasts right away. Aquaman was a completely different character in the two. Almost a completely different character between the two. Like he was a lot more. He was a lot more comedic. He was a little bit more laid back, a little bit more of a smartass. In the Snyder cut, he was a lot more stern, and his distaste for the Atlanteans, his inner conflict was a lot more fleshed out this time around.
I'm not saying that all the reshoots were of the same thing, but I think there were some scenes like the cornfield scene with Kent and Lois. Their dialogue is different, but essentially it's the same scene. And the dialogue in Joss is a little lazier, and the cinematography is definitely lazier. But
it's
why
there's a lot of there's a lot of comedy that he was trying to throw in there for some reason.
But
I think that was where a lot of it was coming from.
But Snyder,
unfortunately, when you see him back to back, it didn't land.
Yeah, and Snyder's cut was gorgeous. That whole scene, he knows how to frame a picture, and it was gorgeous.
Oh, it was colored better too.
It was colored better. You didn't have these weird zoom ins on the face with everything else blurred. It just felt like some of the things that were reshot for no reason, because the original dialogue and the original shots wouldn't have conflicted with what Joss was trying to do. Some of them were stark differences, like what you were talking about. But also, what Joss did to punch up the script with more comedy seems like the best jokes that landed, that a lot of people liked from the 2017 version, was actually from the Snyder cut. There was plenty of comedy in this 4-hour movie. I think people thought it was going to be a 4-hour drudge fest, that was just depressing and gloomy. There was plenty of humor in there.
That was a funny thing. It just
wasn't Joss Whedon humor.
A lot of the scenes that I liked the most when I rewatched, like that I remembered liking, were in the Snyder cut, and so I was like, okay, so that was already there, and it was the stuff that was added. Specifically, there's one scene. There's a couple scenes that stick out to me big time, and it's when Barry's getting recruited. Well, first of all, they cut any introduction to his character aside from just showing up in the prison. Whereas with the Snyder cut, we got this nice moment where he is being Barry Allen. He's trying to get a job, and he's shit at it. Fastest man in the world is late. Hilarious. I feel like the slow-mo in that scene was dragged out too long. That's one of the things that I would cut first, is to kind of like get it over with some of the slow-mo scenes where they were really just dragging that stuff out for visuals. But fair enough. It's not a theatrical release. But he's having the talk after he's revealed himself to Bruce. Bruce has revealed himself to him, blah, 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 blah. And then it cuts to Barry talking about how he doesn't click with people. People are too slow. He doesn't understand what brunch is. And you can see how really rough and ragged the green screen is in that moment, because he had to reshoot to put that in there. And it was like, I don't know. It was uncomfortable.
So that scene, for example, I mean, the brunch stuff was added. What did that add to the film?
Well, it didn't add anything to Barry's character, and that was what really irritated me, because you see the Snyder Cut version here, and you got to see him be a hero. Like, he couldn't help but be a hero in that moment while still trying to salvage the situation. But again, like, and Barry is like the lighter case of I don't want to say it's character assassination, but Cyborg got fucked over so bad in Whedon's version.
Oh, it is character set. I'll say it for you. What's up, Derpy? How you doing? I'll say it for you. It was characters.
That's fair. The first moment in either version where I actually had one of my like well ups because it was like a hero moment. He's watching this woman through surveillance footage going through this horrible struggle in her life, who's just a good person. Like, she's just a straight up good person, and she's getting fucked over by the system. She's getting evicted from her apartment, stuff like that. His father's monologue is playing in the background, which is such a better explanation to his character. The dynamic between his father and this one was wildly different. First of all, spoiler alert, his father doesn't fucking live through this movie. And that gives him a much stronger motivation to continue to be a hero. Like, he didn't really have that motivation, but then this monologue that he's getting from a recorded version from his father, because he's still not talking to him. We also get that fleshed out, why he blames his father even more. That wasn't fleshed out either. He's also, like, fresh into this. He's having to learn about what he can do. He has a great moment where he's kind of learning how to fly. He's kind of like figuring out what he can do because his father's sort of explaining to him to put it in there.
That whole sequence was great.
Like, and then I watched the 2017 version today, and he's like, check this out, I can fly. Couldn't do that last night. I'm waking up different all the time. And he's an immediate expert with it right away. I was like, you're rushing through this character, but you're also trying to make him an incredibly important aspect of it for the finale. But you're not giving him any characterizations. Like, but then the Snyder Cut comes in and is like, I had a plan. I'm going through this entire thing. I'm also going to give him scenes where I don't have to load him up with fucking motion capture suits and all this shit. Like, I'm going to let him be his inner self, is kind of what I was like thinking of it as when he's like hacking into something or other. He got all of that characterization. It was excellent. And then he increases the bank account for this woman. And she's like freaking out, and he's just watching in the background. And it was such a beautiful moment. And I'm like, why in the fuck? If that was available, first of all, fuck them for cutting that out. Like, if that was something that was already there and they're like looking through footage and they're like, fuck that. We don't need that. We're going to skip all that shit. Fuck that. Cause that's bullshit. Cause that was like,
well, it was
in there already. That wasn't part of the reshoots.
No.
Okay. Well, then fuck them. Cause that was bullshit. That was the moment where I think a lot of people probably went Team Cyborg like right away, because that was like that was one of the only times in the movie where it's kind of brought back down to a relatable level. A lot of it is all on this very grand scheme. Yes, Barry saves a woman who he's crushing on.
Well, she was crushing on him as well. A lot of people thought that scene was creepy, but she was hard eyeing him for a long time in the initial parts of that scene.
There was a little bit of creepiness in there. Then we have this beautiful moment. It's the one time where it's the one time in the movie, really, when it gets down to it, where a hero is interacting with just a normal member of the public in a normal, I mean, it was a criminal act. It was an anti-hero moment, but still, like, it was necessary. Like,
but it showed
for this person. It showed you his humanity was still there, whereas we didn't get that. Like, we got him bitter throughout the whole time, and he was just a machine in the original Justice League. This one was like, no, he is a human who has cybernetic parts. He is not a cyborg with human components. And it was such a 180. It was gorgeous. And then I had to rewatch it today and get even more fucking pissed off about it.
Well, you didn't have to rewatch it. You subjected yourself to
did.
That.
You know what? I wouldn't have been able to like have like a good cohesive conversation between the contrast, because it's been like I hadn't watched the original Justice League since around like the fucking release.
Yeah.
So like it wouldn't have been fair for me to like come in here and sing all the praises of the Snyder Cut without having the original fresh in my mind. Because then I would have been shitting on it from like just a grumpy history, but now I'm shitting on it from like a okay, you earned this shit.
Fresh in your mind.
You earned this pooping on for sure.
Jared over here is saying both versions screwed Cyborg, fellas. Now, I don't agree with that, and this is why.
Not even in the slightest.
First of all, over here, you'll see my little WTF instead of the WB symbol. This is one of the things that we both agree on
Super clever.
with screwing Ray Fisher over. My heart breaks for Ray Fisher because for the last few years, he's been telling people they cut out a ton. Mm-hmm. And here's the thing. When I can only imagine how they approached Ray Fisher about this character. They didn't just say, dude, you're going to be so powerful. You're going to be kind of on par with Superman in terms of your abilities. You're going to be able to do all these things digitally. There's going to be this great scene that shows you can impact the economy. You can launch every nuke if you want. There's going to be all this. Aside from all of his power, he was the heart of this film. The entire film hinged on him. And he brought so much emotion to this film and brought so much depth to this film. His father's sacrifice saved the earth because it gave them a way to find the boxes. He brought so much more to this film than the 2017 version. And it was clearly setting up a movie for him. I mean, this is the Justice League movie.
He gets his tragic moment. He gets his tragic hero moment when his dad dies rather than
this was not
where he just suddenly forgives him.
Right. It shows his origin, but this is not a Cyborg movie. But the fact that he was in there that much, when to be honest, the Trinity, Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman, those are the big names. Aquaman's big as well, but the Flash, Cyborg is like the lowest of the low on that team, or at least he has been portrayed that way. In fact, in a lot of iterations, he's not even on the Justice League. He's on the Young Justice team, but they hinged so much of this plot around him. I was just like, how could you remove that much and all of that heart? In the 2017 version, he was just this emo kid in a hoodie that was just like, oh, leave me alone. I got daddy issues. There was so much more depth to his character in this one. He had so much responsibility. He had so much growth. And then the stuff between him and his father, with his father truly aching and trying to make up for his mistakes in life, trying to save his son. He said he was his father twice over because he brought him into this world and then he brought him back to this world. He was just begging his son not to die alone in an apartment, but to go out and be something. And there's a moment when his father is on the walkie-talkie saying, hey, there's something wrong with the system. It's a glitch, turn it off. And then the doors open up and he sees his son in the middle of the Justice League. And he might not know everybody in that lineup, but he certainly knows who Wonder Woman is and he knows who Batman is because he references Batman earlier. Mm-hmm. To see his son leading that crew with purpose in his step, that's a big moment. It's a very subtle moment, but it's a big moment because that's what he wanted for his son. He knew his son had greatness in him. And to see that was a big thing. And I felt I was kind of welling up in that moment because it was just like,
it was big.
It was a father seeing his son step up. And that was amazing.
The big thing that got me was that they explained his hatred of his father a lot better this time around. They didn't really explain it in the last one. It was just like, we had to assume that he hated his father because he turned him into this machine. Whereas what really happened, and we also didn't get him calling the mother box a change engine like 400 fucking times.
Right, right.
The big thing was that like Victor Stone was a football star who was like this genius kid, but his mother was the only one in his life because his dad was always working. He has this triumphant football moment where he wins what we're assuming is a pretty big championship. And then he looks to see his mother who is like freaking out. She's so happy for him. She's crying. She's stoked. And then she sees the empty seat next to her where his father, so he wanted his dad to come. He got him a ticket and his dad still didn't go. And it's like, there was and then he has this conversation with his mother before they get into the accident. The last thing that he remembers before waking up in that lab was being pissed off at his father and his mom continuing to defend him when he had like they established a history, a pattern of his father disappointing him. It's like, yeah. And then he gets brought back to life. His mother is gone. And then he's like mostly a machine made out of alien technology.
The dad who he was never around at the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah. Like
he had that line in that car with, "You're busy too. Don't make excuses for him. You made time."
Yeah.
He didn't. Both his parents were doctors. Yeah.
Like they established, they gave him proper humanization. They gave him a proper reason for having a real conflict with his father, not just like on the cybernetic side, specifically on the humans. Like they gave Cyborg a human side in this movie that he did not have before. And that is incredibly important to his character. He is one of the few characters in this movie, aside from Batman and Superman. I mean, as far as the Justice League characters go, he is one that I'm a little bit more familiar with after like seeing the Teen Titans show.
Yeah.
Before it went to absolute shit with Teen Titans Go. But like, it's so important for him to have a human side. And then the other big thing that was like that's really a major plot point when it comes down to it, is that they did not establish in the Snyder Cut that he was an expert in this technology. He doesn't know exactly what he's doing yet. He is learning all of these responsibilities and all these powers for the first time. And he hadn't been exploring them because he'd been brooding the whole time, as his father put it. So when they finally revive Superman, he shows up and this auto defense system is taking over and he can't control it. It makes so much more sense at that point. Whereas it did not make any sense in the Joss Whedon version, because he established him right off the bat as an expert in this technology. He was blacking out cities, an entire city block to meet up with Wonder Woman. He was hacking Bruce Wayne's security systems. In this one, they explained that he already had some hacking experience.
Yeah, they did add that. So
but he wasn't a weapons he wasn't a weapons master. Like he had to learn, and he had never experienced that situation because he hadn't been in danger since he had gotten those powers. So it established a actual like understanding of his character.
But I did like how they had that small scene with his mother and the principal or the dean or whatever of his college. And the dean was saying, "Your son,
grades. It was so
your son might be a genius and he might be great on the football team, but he hacked in and changed this girl's grades." So it established a history of him using his abilities to help out other people. I mean, was it the best thing to do? Probably not. But as his mother put it, what were you guys doing to help out this girl? You know, the system wasn't helping her, so he chose to use his abilities too. So when he got this technology and this ability to change things, it made that much more sense that the first thing he did was find somebody. The first thing he did wasn't to 100%. Check out all his armory and everything. It was that he noticed a waitress who was in need and he helped her out. That was great. I thought that and all that stuff, both parts of that weren't in the 2017 version, and it added so much depth. What did Jared say? Yeah, that makes sense. Maybe it's my misunderstanding of his potential abilities that was lost on me because I finally understood what Cyborg could actually do, and it felt our third dimension could be molded, which even Superman would have to abide by while being there. Yeah, I mean, it just added so much to him. And he wasn't just this brooding kid that just had all these powers. It was a more transfer, and it took time, and he built up to this team. And
we needed to know that all those cybernetics were an extension of the human that was already there.
Correct.
Rather than just a machine.
You give a random person all the tools to hack something, they're not going to know how to hack. You know, he was a genius already. But the fact that now given the power to do something, he still used it for the most basic good, that was great. You know, and then when he was given,
I'm going to bring this comment up again because I don't want to just leave this one in the chat. Warner Brothers denied a sequel to this before this was even made. Like they denied a sequel to this proper version as soon as they shat Zack Snyder out the door.
And their
it's a real
CEO
shame
or whatever,
seeing this and seeing what could have been. That's what
he just did
more than anything else.
he just did an interview today where he confirmed this is not canon. We have no plans of continuing the Snyderverse, because they specifically asked him, "Hey, restore the Snyderverse is trending, And let's be fair, what came out a day after the Snyder Cut? The first episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
I still haven't seen it.
No one was talking about that over the weekend. It was Snyder Cut. Snyder Cut was trending in the top 10 worldwide, like for the first 2 days, almost consistently. That's crazy.
If I had one more free hour, I would have watched that episode. But by the time we finished, it was already getting late, and I was like,
we'll have to talk about it. It wasn't bad, but it wasn't a great either. But I clearly wanted to watch another 4 hours of Snyder Cut than go watch another episode of Falcon and the Winter Soldier.
The other thing
we're not comparing the two, though.
The other thing that got cut out that I'm actually pretty happy about, because when I watched it this time around, it really didn't make sense to me, is that out of nowhere Joss Whedon created this weird angry dynamic between Wonder Woman and Batman, specifically around bringing Superman back. And this one, they're all on board, and you've got Aquaman, who in the Joss Whedon version was also opposed to it. Like, he stayed consistent, which is great, but it was clear that like everybody thought that this was going to be a good idea. And it also accounts for why in the moment after Superman is revived that Diana is like excited about it. She's not fearful or anything like that. Like, she was happy for this to happen. Whereas in the Whedon cut, you get that weird inconsistency, but beforehand she's like stern and adamant. It's like, no, this shouldn't happen. This isn't how it should go. And then it creates this weird tense moment between her and Bruce. It's just like, this just doesn't feel right, like it really didn't hit me well. And then the Snyder cut, he's just like, yeah, that's bullshit, we're not going to put that in there. And then it made perfect sense.
The build up to Superman's restoration was so much better in the Snyder cut.
Oh man, it was so much better
from the start, when they're in the Batcave and they're questioning, who the hell are you, Cyborg, and how are you connected to this? And he gives the history of the mother box, the human mother box, and how
it went through. It was like a 2-line thing in Whedon's version. It was like 2 lines of explanation. It was bullshit. Right.
Instead, in the Snyder cut, we got the Nazis had it, then the Allies had it, then it got all the way. Then it got all the way to, once they had the Superman ship, then Cyborg's father was working on it. He describes it, like you said, as a change machine that changes things. And then that's how the whole table comes together. As Flash says, I'm not going to say it, but we're all thinking it. They were all thinking, well, could this change Superman's fate? And then, they have conversations, Wonder Woman and Aquaman saying, when you bring somebody back, things happen. Maybe, they were talking about it. We both have that saying. Back in the Batcave, Alfred is like, Batman, you did it. You got that team, but is this a step too far? And Batman has this great line, which is in stark contrast to the Batman we saw in BVS, the broken, drunk, beaten down by everything he's been through. He looks at Alfred and says, for once, I'm going off faith, and I need to hold on to this. And he holds on to that all the way to the last second, because like you said, Aquaman's like, we should abort, we shouldn't do this. At the last second, Cyborg seeing a premonition of what happens if things go bad,
which made sense because we said that they said that the mother box was going to show you shit.
Right. So Cyborg is like, maybe we shouldn't do this. And Batman's like, we already went over the possible negatives. We're doing it. And that was that. But it added to the tension, especially that premonition scene when you have like Wonder Woman on the fire. She's dead.
She was in a pyre and she had the fucking pennies on her eyes for the
She had the coins on her eyes. That was great imagery. Superman was holding Lois's charred body, and Zod and Darkseid was standing over them with his hand on his shoulder.
He got the premonition that follows in line with the dream that Bruce had been having this entire fucking time.
Right.
And that ended up showing up in the epilogue too.
Yeah.
It was nuts.
It was so much more tension to that scene. I loved it.
Here's another thing that I noticed. We got to talk about Wonder Woman a little bit because her introduction was great in the original, where she's standing up on the statue with the scales of justice there and everything. As the like what we thought was a bank robbery at first, when you first got introduced to it, you realize it's just a terrorist event. The fucking music in the Whedon version is like comical.
Oh,
like
yeah.
The music that they use, like that was the first thing I noticed, because when I watched the Snyder cut last night, I was like, this is, I couldn't remember the music, honestly. Like I could remember the scenes, but like I was in at this point. I was watching hard. And the music is a lot more foreboding. It's a little bit more fucked up. And
she's
then this
fucking killing
one,
people.
It's a fucking, they're reactionary terrorists. They're about to bomb a building full of kids.
Mm-hmm.
And then
4
the
city
music
blocks.
in the Whedon, and then the music in the Whedon version reminded me of fucking Batman and Robin when they still had nipples on their armor. I was just like, what are you doing? This is supposed to be a fucked up scene. And
I get
it was also
some
like
of it
over in a flash in the Whedon version.
Oh
whereas
yeah,
this
they
one,
cut out
like
a bunch.
explained it out. Like she has a nice moment with a little girl who's like it was her, like people are looking up to her moment, rather than at the very end of the Whedon version where she's putting a statue away and has these like shitty plumber suit dudes being interrogated with the rope. It's like they did Wonder Woman better in this one already too. Like it was like
They did. She was straight up killing dudes in that lobby. They showed her protecting more and doing the fast motion with, blocking all the bullets. They showed blood splatter on the walls, which, I mean, I get why they cut that stuff out. The bomb
we got the R
scene,
rating this time, gentlemen. We got the R rating this time.
The bomb scene in the Whedon, she just kind of threw it up and it barely crosses the building and then it blows up. Whereas in it's a gorgeous shot of her jumping way above the building, throwing that up and then falling as she watches it. And I get it. Snyder loves his slow-mo, but damn, that was a good shot of her falling and it going up and then exploding. It was so gorgeous. And then we see this terrorist straight up pointing the guns at the kids.
Like,
they're all freaking
I'm
out.
Still gonna do. He's like, I'm still gonna do my job, but like they still, like the original version still made that feel like it was a throwaway moment. This one made it feel like, this one like emphasized it. It's like, this guy couldn't bomb kids, so he's gonna shoot them all in the fucking face.
The stakes felt higher, and he felt like, I'm gonna kill people if it's the last thing I do. And I mean, and then he like unloads a whole clip. She blocks it all and gives him just enough time to reload again before she just dusts his ass. I mean, it doesn't show him evaporate, but she did. She totally just destroyed that dude.
You have to assume, because we actually saw the end result of what that did to all the bystanders who are sitting outside. They got rained on by debris. It's like, banging those gauntlets together doesn't exactly fuck around.
Jared agrees with the shot. It's not
selective on its damage.
Music taken from Benny Hill.
It felt like that, dude. It felt like that. It felt so comical. It was like, fuck, I was watching a fucking cartoon.
It was way better scene. And we also saw that in this version, after Bruce Wayne had gone to see Aquaman in the town, which even the town scene was better. Oh my God. The dialogue was better. He had more respect. He wasn't trying to do, I heard you talk to fish. Could you point me to Atlantis? There was none of that stuff with the Batman.
I will say that line wouldn't fuck with me too bad.
Well, I appreciated the dialogue instead.
I appreciated that he didn't go there, but at the same time, like he had been like Batman kind of been getting like jerked around by him a little bit. If he had thrown that line in there, it'd been like, all right, cool, fair enough.
Well, they added a Tarmac scene. Well, they didn't add it; they just cut it from the Justice League. We're gonna say added a lot, but it was in the original cut. The Tarmac scene with Alfred saying, maybe a dude that broods around in a cave isn't the best recruiter for a team, which was a great line. But he also says, when Bruce says that we didn't get Aquaman, he's like 0 for 2, which means that even Wonder Woman turned him down. Because it kind of seemed like at the end of BVS, like Wonder Woman was like ready. But in this version, we see, nope, she turned him down. She went back over to Europe. She's doing her own thing. And it takes an arrow into Greece from Themyscira to get her to realize, oh shit, Batman was right. And then she turns up at his door.
Attention.
Yeah. Well,
Like,
she turns up at
she
his
actually
door.
investigated this time around.
She did. Yeah.
Like she didn't just see this. She's like, oh, I got to go talk to Batman, and I know everything that's fucking happening. Like,
Oh yeah.
fucking,
She didn't
like,
just see
she
the
actually,
fire
like,
and go to the Batcave.
like that era was also the key to a Indiana Jones moment that she had that she also did in
Yes.
heels because she's a fucking badass apparently. Like, she
Jeffrey,
goes to this
I swear
tomb.
to God.
She learns the story instead of like showing up to Batman and immediately jumping into an exposition scene. It's like, how much shit did you? I mean, I know that you're like a bajillion years old, but how much shit did they tell you about that you have all this perfect recall on? Like,
Yeah. Jeff, we're not going to kick you out of the show or anything, but I swear you were doing the same thing with BVS, weren't you? Or was it somebody else that hadn't seen it?
You got to watch this, man.
I feel bad that we're talking about it, but if you want to hang around, man.
I mean, you got plenty of warning. We have spoilers everywhere. We have it in the title. We have it down here at the bottom. Like,
but yeah, the Indiana Jones scene was great. And then, she knew what was coming and was able to go and inform Batman and the crew. And then she was more invested in helping him build the team. So that felt more cohesive. I mean, I get it. If you were looking for things to cut, some of these things you could have cut. But the fact that they not only cut scenes, they added scenes made no sense. I mean, the stuff that Joss added was just comical and bad. And most people were under the impression in 2017 that they brought him in to punch it up, that there was no comedy, when there was plenty of comedy in the Snyder Cut. The I'm rich, bitch line was in the Snyder Cut. There was plenty of jokes. There was plenty. It was a lighter tone. He bought the bank. The fact is, Zack Snyder knows his shit, okay? He made a very somber Man of Steel film. He made a very dark and gloomy BVS film because that's what it called for. But then when he was tasked to do Justice League, he clearly made an emotional movie that had some ups in it and that had some comedy in it. I mean, clearly, we just watched it. I watched it twice. So apparently he knows how to change tone when the story requires it. And the fact that somebody over at WB was like, no, what we need to do is hire the guy that did the last two Avengers films, have him copy paste some of the gags from those films into this film.
Oh God!
Even if Gal Gadot doesn't like it. Yeah, I'm sure Gal is too. I did watch that scene again because I was like, this scene feels longer, the whole scene in the sewers. And yeah, you can even tell, like, her face is turned from the screen, so you know it's not her. Like, I didn't miss anything from the Justice League. It'd be one thing if it'd be like, oh yeah, he kind of did some good stuff. I missed zero things. Zero.
I will say that even in Snyder's version, the scene where Barry runs around the tunnel to tap her sword back into her hands still seems useless to me because she just lands on the ground. It's not like it was landing in the water or something. It's like, just pick it up when you get down there.
Well, he was being helpful somehow. It was
a cool moment, but that was like the only reason it was in there. The Snyder Cut didn't make that any different for me.
He had that debris scene where he got most of the debris that was going to fall on that group. I liked that a lot. Great. I liked that they cut the whole "I just push people and run away" line.
I'm afraid of bugs. I don't do battles.
Yeah.
Like
he wasn't.
That was that meek character that was talking about.
Yeah,
like, they took that away from him, and
he was still young.
He was a hero. Though.
He still needed some direction. Go help Cyborg get these people out of here. He still needed some direction, but he wasn't like afraid to do something. And I thought that was better portrayed in this film. Not to mention, there was so much lead up to his big finale, because we saw him in the beginning doing the stuff with the girl who he'll eventually fall in love with. We saw him when they
his friggin' shoes.
Right, that was great. We saw when they needed to charge the mother box to bring back Superman. He was like, I can do this. I have this rule that I shouldn't because things happen with time. And we see him get there a little late, and he reverses time to get the mother box to come back up. That's setting up his big finale. When that they also cut
on that finale for him too, which is
weird. Crazy. So instead of him having to push a pickup truck of a Russian family out of the way and basically doing nothing in the finale during Justice League. He has the most pivotal,
unnecessary Russian family. By the way, they did,
right.
They were nothing. There was
They
no
cut
reason for them to be there.
all of that out in the Snyder cut. There's nobody there. They're treating it like any other place that's been saturated with radiation. No one's living there anymore.
Yeah,
it's
gone. Why the fuck would people? Why the fuck would there be civilians there? Let alone,
correct.
Like, first of all, there was like it wasn't.
And how would they survive?
It wasn't just a truckload of them. Like Superman moves a fucking building full.
He was doing a whole apartment building of them, right? So instead, they actually come with a plan, and Flash is vital to that plan. He's sprinting around the whole compound, building up a charge to give to Cyborg so he can get in the mother boxes and take it apart from within. And he fails. He gets hit by a lucky shot and fails. Everybody fails. Everybody dies.
It was like those trick shots. It took him like 400 fucking tries.
Oh yeah, he was just like. He was just like, I'm gonna get him at one point. Yeah, he's got to come around.
Going.
He's just like counting down.
We got a great moment out of Barry out of that too, like immediately after he gets hurt, because not only does he know that he fails, but he actually got hurt. He got the wind knocked out of him, and Ezra Miller played that part really well because he was he was battling with like not being able to breathe, but also being like terrified that he just like ruined the world.
He's like, I'm fucking up. Oh yeah, there was emotion in that cry.
Yeah,
he's like, I just got the wind knocked down of me. He didn't want to tell people that he got shot. He was trying to heal fast, and then he straight up reverses time, and that was great when he sees that shockwave from the mother box after the unity happens. Darkseid's watching. Cyborg's like, fuck, we fucked up. It's too late. He straight up goes into Time Force, puts his hand out, lets that shockwave pass him, and then, he goes back to what his dad told him about make your own future, and he straight up rewrites the past.
Make your own future, make your own past. Like
how do you cut that scene?
I don't know.
That gorgeous scene of the stuff coming back, and he's in front of it. Oh my God, that was beautiful. That was a great scene.
It was a great scene, and it gives us more reason to like care about like his father's reaction at the end of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it's like because he did that for his dad. Like that was the big thing, and he's like, you were right. Like I want you to know. Like he's calling to his dad. He's literally giving him what could be his.
Who's
last
dead
message.
At this point?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Who's like everybody on Earth is dead.
Yeah. This is the last moment. If you hear this, I want you to know that your son was one of them. Like he was one of the best of the best. Like, because he wasn't even sure if it was going to work. That was how big of a thing this was. It was his last ditch effort,
right?
And he made it fucking work. And it was a beautiful moment. And
it's also gory when you saw the bodies coming back together. That was great.
But it also led to like a way better finale. But before we talk about that, we need to talk about Darkseid.
Yes.
We need to talk about Darkseid. We need to talk about Steppenwolf. First of all, Steppenwolf looks so much better.
So much better.
He looks so much better. It's ridiculous. He even sounds better. You're welcome, Jared. Like, I'm gonna watch it again. This is one of the movies that is, you know what, this movie did kind of what WandaVision did for like Age of Ultron. It's making me go back on other films with these characters, and I'm going to be able to watch them in a different light because like I don't have to be upset about how things go for him in Justice League.
Sure.
Like, and there's also connection, like specifically in Aquaman. Like I watched Aquaman again today. It's like I was watching it in the background, so I didn't like catch every little nuance again that might have been there that I might have missed. But yeah, that was it made a lot more sense coming into it that he would have like that resentment towards Atlantis, because in the Whedon version, it really wasn't illustrated very well. He got a little bit of a moment in there, but he really fleshes it out here.
Seeing like what's his name
coming back in there. Willem Dafoe.
Yeah. Now they did have stuff in the Snyder version that they ditched for Aquaman. Like in Aquaman, they can talk underwater. They don't have to do the air bubbles and everything. That was a Snyder thing that they let go of in Aquaman. But it was still nice to see more of the Atlantis stuff, and to see Dafoe in there and everything. But Steppenwolf.
It enriched the story of Aquaman's character, but yeah, watching Steppenwolf like go through that battle. First of all, like the cage, like instead of it being like this useless thing in Whedon's version where she closed it, it was this big dramatic moment, and then he just cuts through the fucking wall. Like it had to fall that bitch had to fall off a cliff into the ocean, and maybe
that was
to let
badass,
him get out
though.
of it before
that
he
was
able
all
to get
planned. They're like, we're gonna build this, so if we ever have to shut it down, it's gonna straight up fall off the cliff.
We're gonna bail this bitch into the water, and whatever's in there isn't gonna get out. And for a while, you're like, that might have worked. And but in like the Whedon version, he made short work. He cut an X into a doorway, and just Minecrafted his way out of the fucking door. And then he was onward.
Right, and took out all the sacrifice of those Amazons that stayed in there, especially the ones that held the door for the queen so she could get through, and then dove in knowing that shit was about to fall off the cliff into the water.
Like
they died.
Rather than get smashed by the door or something like that, they're like, we're gonna die, but we're gonna die fighting.
Right. And knowing that was gonna happen. That's sacrifice.
My favorite moment of that battle was still in there, which is when the fucking Amazon sacrifices her life firing that arrow that she tied.
Yeah, that was badass.
That was a badass moment. I was glad that was Snyder's because it was really fucking cool. And I don't want to say that like shitting on Joss Whedon because I know that Warner Brothers had a lot to do with this too. But yeah, Joss Whedon does not come out of this looking good at all.
Not to mention, Steppenwolf in the Whedon cut looked like a PS2 rendering. Like he just really doesn't. Did. I mean, not only is the design different, but the clarity and the details. Like when you get really close on Steppenwolf's face in the Snyder cut, you can see the details in his skin, man. Even his eyeballs look better. He's
also way more of an alien this time around. Like he's not like a
is.
humanoid character wearing a helmet that looks like that.
Correct.
Like he's like it's that's part of his head.
When you see him take off his armor when he bows before Darkseid, you see those back muscles. You're like, damn, this dude is. They put some thought into this guy's
He was
design.
a lot scarier. Like he was, and the fact that he was sent there by Darkseid as kind of a servant also gave us way more into his character. Like the whole trope of a character who's just in it for world domination is so fucking tired now. Like he had a much richer reason for wanting to be there. Like Steppenwolf was trying to end his exile, which we still didn't get an answer for why he was exiled, other than that he betrayed Darkseid.
It was hinted.
It was hinted at. Well, he betrayed Darkseid.
We didn't get to like, you could have been up here on his right hand, but your pride got in front of you. Yeah,
we don't know what he did to betray Darkseid, but that little bit of mystery is fine. It's like it's like, all right, he pissed off the big bad guy, and then he's been sent on these errands here, and then now this is his way back on.
He's been tasked with 50,000 planets. Like that's crazy.
Yeah, it gave him so much more motivation as a character, and also he wasn't calling the box's mother the entire fucking time, which was nice because that was really irritating.
That was weird. It was just like, does he want to like? Is he like trying to get with these boxes or something? Like what's up with this?
We know that they're living machines, but it was just too much.
It was weird. He kept on calling him mother way too much. His conversations with the Sod were better. Like he was like he couldn't just call up Darkseid. He wasn't even allowed to talk to Darkseid. He's pleading with the Sod, like, just please let me have an audience with him. Let me make a plea. Even his eyes go big. I saw one person on Twitter like, I get that you had to make him look different, but did you have to make him look adorable at times? Because he had emotion in his eyes when he was like pleading, like, just let me make a plea. And Desaad was like, he was
a character. Like he had characterization this time around. He wasn't just the bad guy who was out to just dominate the world. That's a big thing. Like if you don't have a compelling villain, you don't have a movie.
Everything about him was better. There was even a part when Mura, he was fighting with Mura, and she does her little water bending thing, She starts taking the water out of him. Then she starts blood bending and taking the blood out of him. And I was like, oh shit. And he like pushes her aside, and even he has to like shake that off. And he's like, God damn it, you almost killed me with that. Tries to kill her. That was great.
Another thing that made it more compelling is that in Whedon's cut, he has a lot more moments where he does look like he's just dominating.
Yeah.
In the Snyder cut, they make it look like he is beatable, but just not individually. Like
right.
It really hones in that that if they come together, they're fine.
But when he does cut people up, there was blood.
Oh, I mean, no, he's definitely
underwater and on land. I love the blood.
They took away the parademons smelling fear, which was the stupidest fucking thing about him in the original Justice League. That was great. It made way more sense for them to be servants of Darkseid. Like the whole origin story around Darkseid made a lot more sense. That was a big thing. I still find it funny that the gods or that the Atlanteans is like, let's bury the box deep underwater. Let's lock it in this guarded fortress. Amazons. Yep. Let's put it in this cage that if anybody breaks in, we can just throw it in the fucking ocean. And then the men are like, just throw it in a hole. Throw it in a hole, put some dirt on it, be fine.
I think it was like they were putting it in somewhere where it would be forgotten. Like that's not the first time we've seen a story about old lore where they just straight up like bury it so that nobody will know it. Because if someone knows where it is, men can't trust other men. So they just the scene didn't show them killing all the dudes that buried that, at the end of that.
They dug the thing in the middle of a shallow grave on what looked like a footpath, like somebody's going to come across that goddamn
That was
thing.
dumb. That was dumb.
So,
yeah.
But
to be fair,
but that was in the last
one. It was the one that
too,
took the longest to get. It was that box that took the longest for Steppenwolf to get.
Well, yeah, but it changed hands a few times.
Sure.
I like that they were so awestruck by Superman coming back that when the box landed back on the car, they didn't even notice it. And then again, Cyborg's father gets another moment to be a hero. Like Steppenwolf doesn't just show up, steal it, and then disappear. Like there's another.
Well, the Justice League's
there.
just watching.
Make it
like
easy for him.
Oh, he got it. That sucks. Yeah,
we get a better reason for why they're able to find out where the damn thing is instead of having this stupid talk between Bruce and Aquaman. It's like, can you talk to some fish and see if they know where it's at? It's like, no. Like, yeah, he's super.
Or the Batman and Parademon in Gotham when the Parademon like blows up. There's like 3 boxes in blood like charred on the wall. That made no sense.
Fucking sense. And then it's also like bugged by a police siren.
Yeah, it's dumb. What? So dumb. But in this case, Cyborg's dad sees it, knows something has to be done, and spends his last moment doing it. And
he's like, he's gonna get this thing. I need to make sure that they can find it because you can't track it while it's asleep.
He sacrificed himself so his son could do what his son was meant to do, and that was awesome. And then his son realizing it, that he sacrificed himself so that I could save the world. God, that was great, and it made sense.
He needed that proof that his father did care about him because he still didn't have it at that point. Like he was still on the fence as far as all that went. Because, like, again, that beautiful monologue that his father has, he crushed that thing before he could talk to him as a father. And so at that moment, like, in that moment,
didn't want to hear it at that moment.
His dad, and then he sees him sacrifice himself to make sure that his son succeeds. It's like, God damn it! Like,
it was great.
They humanize like a character who was like the father of he was a throwaway father of a throwaway character in Whedon's cut. Because they fucked him so bad over in that one. They humanized both of them.
Well, Snyder knows his characters, just like small things like what he did with Lois in this movie. In the Justice League version, in Joss's version, he took that whole Lois is the key to mean that Batman had Alfred go get Lois for this scene. That's not what that was. In the Snyder cut, we know that Lois is the key, as in if she dies, Superman goes bad. But instead of Alfred going and fetching her, we get this story of how she's let herself go. She may or may not be pregnant. She hasn't been going to work. She's going to the memorial site every morning, even giving coffee to the to the,
to the cop
cop,
guard who's just hanging out there every day. Like
right,
she has a
who
she's been there so often. She has a rapport with the guy.
cool behind the scenes thing. That cop was in the original Reeves movies. I believe he was Jimmy.
Really?
The actor, he was in the original Christopher Reeves movies. But yeah, so we see that, and then we see her come to this moment where she's like, you know what, I need to move on. She's there, she says her goodbyes, and then on her way to work, she sees him up in the air. And that was a more impactful scene. And then that's continued onto the farm where we see this more stuff about her getting him a shirt and him talking about his mom and remembering things about his mom and then remembering how he loved it on the farm. And those things were very small exchanges, but they added so much weight and so much emotion to those characters. And just the shot of those two in the window looking out over the farm, I was like, God damn it, he knows these characters, man. You know, it was so much more real and more grounded than the lackluster shit in the Joss version.
Jared, in response to your comment here, now Josh, don't say anything because I'm going to take a stab here. This is a moment of levity here. Josh has some flickering lights in the reflections of his books here because he's sitting in a room where there's a light with a ceiling fan, and the shadow is flicking around.
Oh, that's why. Mm-hmm.
Oh my God. World's best detective, right? Fucking there.
You're right. About your library sitting. What's going on back? Well,
Josh is wearing a hoodie. It's fucking warm, so he has a ceiling fan on, and the ceiling fan is interrupting
Snyder
the light.
I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry I can't have a fan on. I gotta wear my Snyder Cut hoodie, buddy.
I am fucking Sherlock Holmes up in this bitch. No,
yes,
yeah,
you are.
that made so. It was so beautiful to have Lois actually involved because in the Joss Whedon cut, that stupid break room scene at the Day of the Planet, she's writing fluff pieces. Like a journalist of her
like
caliber
a cat
would not.
Stuff.
Yeah, cats doing tricks and shit like that. But like they threw her character away in there too, and then she was just eye candy for Superman when he comes back. And this one, it's like no, this is how it gets fucking real. Like when you're gonna have a moment be as important as to where like Lois is the key. And you're like, oh, she's just going to happen to be this ex machina moment that Bruce Wayne can use.
Right.
It was like, no.
That is not what that was in reference to.
And she is Superman's entire fucking world. We need to establish that he is her whole world as well. And we got that moment. And it was early on, too. Like, it was like one of the first scenes that we see after his extended throwback to what happened at the end of Batman versus Superman, which is a beautiful moment of the scream heard around the world, essentially. But yeah, it's like really early on. She wakes up without him. She fucking hates it. She's terribly depressed. They color grade it so much better. Like they skip through that scene in the original Justice League, which is stupid.
Right. They don't even show. They show her the top of her umbrella going up to the memorial, but they don't show that it's her. It's part of that.
Yeah, they cut to another
Everybody
kid or
Knows
something like that.
Song. Yeah, it doesn't even show that she's going to that spot every morning. It's kind of
she gets coffee for him. They build this rapport. It's a beautiful moment.
And then after he's back, he immediately goes to Mom, Lois. They brought me back for a reason. I'd love to stay with you on the farm, but I got to go find out what that reason is. And that just shows who he is, you know, that he could live the simple life. He doesn't, but he knows that he's tasked for more, you know.
That was the thing that was stupid about Whedon's cut is that at the end of Batman versus Superman, Batman and Superman were allied. They had kind of put away that little issue. Yes, it was a hard 180, and I still don't like it. But they had kind of put away that hatred. In the Justice League, they make it seem like, it's like, all right, Batman's back. If he sees you, it's going to be a fucking nightmare. And then Superman gets his terrible "do you bleed" moment, which is fucking weird. And this one, it seems like he does recognize him, but still doesn't know who he is, just knows that he's part of the threat.
And there's a reason Batman hangs back, because he knows he's got those gauntlets, which was like, you know, at least he took some precaution from his last fight. But
well, there was another thing. It was another throwback to how awesome Alfred is that he's always trying to like innovate. He's always trying to come up with new stuff. You know what the most important upgrade that he got in Whedon's fucking version? his gauntlet had a little button on it that you could push to make that siren noise. In this one, he was like, no, I'm going to make something that fucking absorbs energy and then diverts it back.
Even Wonder Woman was like, you want to copy my lasso as well?
but then he blows through that life-saving gear that Alfred made him trying to defend himself from Superman.
Mm-hmm. Not even defend himself, just take it. Well, he's pleading. He's pleading with Superman. He's like, the world needs you. Don't do this. But he's not fighting him. He's not egging him on. And then Lois saves him. I mean, it's very mirrored to Lois saving Clark in the previous movie. This is a trilogy, if y'all haven't picked up on this. Man of Steel, BVS, Justice League. It's the trilogy. It's meant, BVS starts at the end of Man of Steel. Justice League starts at the end of BVS. They're connected, and there's so many mirroring scenes like that, and it's gorgeous, and I loved it so much.
I was really glad that him reuniting with his mother was Snyder's, because that was a beautiful moment in the original Justice League, and it was a beautiful moment again. But again,
with the original cinematography, it was beautiful, not the cutting back and forth to awkward green screen and green and CGI mustache.
It made a lot more sense that Clark would know what was going on rather than Lois having to explain it to him because Alfred brought her there and all that shit.
Right. We didn't need her to tell him what was up. And then he goes back to his ship. And I love that we saw the other costumes that he's never done. Like basically costumes that we've seen in other of the Man of Steel lore. Like you had like the planetary costume and you had the old house
kitchen armor in there.
And then he goes past his blue and red one and he goes to the black one. Now, here's the thing. I know why he went to the black one. They could have explained it a little better. But the black suit was a big part of the comics. When he needed to regenerate, he got that black suit. And what do you know about wearing black when you're out in the sun? It's going to absorb more of the sun than light colors. Now, they didn't say that. And of course, the first thing he does was go right up into the sun, Jesus moment, and take it all in. So I think enough people would understand that. But it could, I don't know. It could have been a throwaway line that they added in. But
so I'm not familiar with Black Suit Superman, so I had to come to that from no knowledge. And I thought that it was, and before I had seen how that scene played out, I thought that Jor-El was going to show up again, or he was going to have another voice or something like that. Like they were going to work that in. And that black suit much more closely resembles what the Kryptonians were wearing.
Right,
and
the
so I
onesies.
Thought that he was going closer to what like he was seeing his people wearing, so he decided to like throw it back or something like that.
I did like the dads talking to him during that scene.
Oh, it was beautiful.
That was so beautiful. Great. That was and they were in unison. They weren't warring against each other like they had been in Man of Steel. They were in unison.
Very loving fathers.
Yeah, that was so great. So great.
Both were compelling him to be good, which is why like the evil Superman theories were bullshit. I was like, there's no way they're going to do that to him. There's no fucking way they're going to go that route.
Then when he shows up at the fight, the most badass entry ever. Not only does he say the fun line of not impressed, he straight up lets Steppenwolf hit him with the axe. Like he doesn't stop the axe. He just steps in front of Cyborg.
Well, he does.
I know, right, but it's not like he grabs it and stops the swing. He just steps in front of Cyborg, lets Steppenwolf hit him, and he's like, "Yeah, no, not impressed." And dust or freeze breaths it and then breaks it. But he's like, "I just let you do a full swing onto my shoulder when we saw somebody else take a full swing earlier in the film and get jacked up." And Superman's like, "Nah, I'm good," and then just starts beating the shit out of Steppenwolf. It was fantastic.
It really made it like a lot more one-sided in that moment. Like,
yeah, because he didn't have Superman off saving a village of people. He had him in the fight.
Like he was there, part of the fight. Like it made sense. And then the finale was just better because of it.
He was beating him down. He was flying up. sending him back. He was lasering off one of his freaking horns. And then at the end, he was just standing over him like, Cyborg, you do your thing. I'm just going to beat down on this dude until you're done.
There's nothing. That was another thing. When Cyborg was trying to separate the boxes, Steppenwolf was just kind of walking around him because he was just as curious to see what was going on. Like that was an interesting thing. Like the finale was better in that regard.
Yeah, we saw
a lot of stuff that they kept.
We saw the boxes trying to stop Cyborg from doing it, you know.
Oh yeah, and again, another humanizing moment. It's like, hey,
yeah,
you could have this back. We can fucking do all this stuff, being tempted by the dark side.
And it takes him and Superman. Like he breaks the initial initial mold, but then he needs Superman to help him out. And to see those two on either side, that was awesome. I mean, that shows you how powerful Cyborg is, because it's him and Superman in the end. That's badass. And like you said, that portal opens up. Darkseid, Desaad, and what's the other chick's name? Mother Craziness or whatever her name is.
I don't know. Look like Brienne of Tarth.
Well, it's not. It looked like Judi Dench. It looked like Judi Dench.
A little bit. The Karen in Darkseid's council. She had a Karen haircut. So.
What's her name? It's and she was really blurred out too, obviously, because they, you know,
we didn't get to see much of her. But
she's got a certain name. Granny Goodness, that's her name.
Granny Goodness.
Yeah, that's her name in the comics, and she's always right there by his side. They changed her up. She looks more like an old woman with long hair. In the comic versions, they gave her more of a Judi Dench look. But yeah, to see them all like looking down, like, okay, the unison's about to happen. And then to see Steppenwolf fail, and then the last moments of his life is just the Trinity. Well, it's not the Trinity. It's Aquaman spearing him through the chest, Superman getting one more punch in, and then Wonder Woman, who at this point,
Flash pushes him.
That's right.
Doesn't Flash like push him through?
No. Superman punches him and he starts flying through. Okay. And then right before he goes through, Wonder Woman, who at this point doesn't know if her mother's alive, because he was trying to taunt Wonder Woman and saying, you could have saved your mom.
He was having a great moment with her there too. Just
right.
Like he really had it out for her.
He did.
He was
calling her out every time he saw her.
Because again, he had more history with the Amazons. Like he knew what was going on. He had his most difficult battle for a mother box aside from the third mother box in that moment.
And he sensed
really
that she was
her
more.
She was one of the old gods.
He sensed that, and he was like, you could have saved them. You could have saved your mom. And even though she was like, you're a liar, at that point, she didn't know if he really was. So she made sure she got the last blow. And as he was going through that portal, she cuts his head off. And I'm like, damn right you did.
And then Darkseid catches his head in his boot and just smashes it down. It was like, he was expendable. It wasn't. I got what I needed to out of him.
Well, and he failed him. He failed him again, you know.
He failed him, but at the same time, Darkseid didn't care. He was like, you know what? I figured out. I know what I need to do now.
Right.
Like, I've got it.
And if we have to do it the old invasion way, that's how we do it.
Yeah.
And that's where we leave that. But oh my gosh, that was a great scene. Much better finale. We didn't have any tentacles coming out of the ground. We just had the Justice League
fucking parademons smelling his fear.
Oh my gosh, no!
Destroyed,
but we had plenty
of into space.
Justice League obliterating the parademons and then focusing on the bad guy. No villagers to worry about. No side missions. Just the one. And they all. I mean, if anything, Batman was kind of in the background at the final end, but Cyborg was important. Flash was important. Everybody was important. And it felt more like the Justice League than the Joss version did, for sure. And then we got the epilogue.
And honestly, the epilogue was a little weird for me. I could have done without it.
So what, let's see, this is what Jared wrote, because I know we said we'd get back to it. So he said, can you please address Joker? How the hell would he be capable of surviving in a post world with zero superpowers. Was this a fanboy holler catcall? Well, yes, it was. So basically, that was one of the few scenes that Zack did shoot in this past year for this. And basically, first of all, he knew what we all know, that there's nowhere in hell the WB is going to let him continue the Snyderverse. And he said in an interview that he wanted at least one scene with his Batman and the Joker from that universe, because he didn't direct Suicide Squad. So he wanted to direct a scene, and he brought those two together. It was also kind of the Nightmare universe is his thing. Josh tried to get rid of it. This movie solidifies that it's still a possibility. So he wanted one more, like this could have been, and it felt right to have Joker in that scene. Now, Joker hints at something that makes him more vital than just a member of the team. He's like, you need me. We didn't really get why, but as far as why he's there or how he can survive,
there's something he knows.
Yeah, he knows something.
There's something he knows and it's a card that he's playing to make sure that he gets kept alive.
Right. But at the same time, that's who he is. He's the most conniving son of a bitch you've ever seen. He'll do what he needs to do to survive. So it wasn't a surprise to me that he was there. And clearly he's in possession of some kind of knowledge that's kept Batman from doing what he promised Harley Quinn he would do and killing him. And he said he's going to do it. Just not yet.
Do it slowly.
Do it slowly.
Like,
oh my gosh.
It was a great bit of dialogue. Don't get me wrong, it was a great moment, but it pulled me out of the finale. Like it pulled me out of the movie.
This felt
I thought we got a great ending. I really do. Like they wrapped up the movie, and then the epilogue comes in, and we see this nightmare thing play out. And I'm just
it wasn't just this. It was a couple endings.
It wasn't just.
It was the Return of the King number of endings. But
we get an extended post credit scene with Joe Manganiello,
something like that.
Deathstroke's character, and Lex Luthor. Honestly, it made a lot. This made a lot more sense. It was such a weird reason for him to be there. It was like trying to set up the Legion of Doom
in the Joss version.
Yeah, and it was just stupid. It was like
I did like him. He was better. Jesse Eisenberg was better in that scene.
Oh yeah, he was better because he was only that maniacal psychopath. Like we didn't get that weird like autistic
he dropped most
guy
of that.
He was there.
He said the doctors at Arkham fixed him up or whatever.
Yeah, just dismissive completely.
Yeah, for sure.
Drops Bruce Wayne's name, gives it to Deathstroke, and
name drop.
And Deathstroke would fucking want that name.
Mm-hmm.
So like those are some fucking stakes. But yeah, and then we get the epilogue, and it was interesting to see Mira there. It was interesting to see Deathstroke, Joker there, knowing that like this is a desperation moment for pretty much all of these characters at this point.
Mm-hmm.
It sets something up really cool, but at the same time, I feel like it all right. Okay. So we've got, if it hadn't been there, I wouldn't have missed it. With it being there, I'm not upset that it was still there. Like I enjoyed that sequence, but if it hadn't been there, I wouldn't have been like, this needed something from the nightmare sequence. Like I didn't need it. It was cool seeing Flash in the armor that he goes back in time to tell Bruce about.
I like the Arthur Curry mention by Mira that apparently Arthur's dead.
Mm-hmm.
I like that. Here's the thing. One, we know it wasn't in the original cut. Two, we had that interview where he's like, I wanted to do a send off to these characters because I know I'll never be in this movie again or never be in this universe again. And three, this would have easily worked as a mid-credit or an in-credit scene. However, he wanted the last thing on the screen before the credits to be his daughter's name. So he didn't want a mid-credit scene or an end-credit scene. But if this nightmare sequence had shown up in the mid-credits or an end-credits, that's what it felt like. It didn't feel like the finale moment of a film. It felt like a tease for what we know will never happen. But that's fine, because we know this whole thing is a tease for films that will never happen.
But let me offer up an alternative way that I would have done it, and it's not like it's an editing thing. It's like it's kind of the same thing that we came down to with when we did our Batman versus Superman watch party, to where there were some things that were just out of order. To justify what Zack Snyder set up in Batman versus Superman, we get more callbacks to that nightmare moment. Like we will have gotten like more snippets of it throughout the movie, not all at the fucking end. I think
it was there was two. There was one in the movie. It was Cyborg's premonition.
Yeah. But like the nightmare scenario, as it relates to Bruce, him waking up to that a couple different times throughout the film. And then that also would have explained, and maybe even have them be a little bit different each time, would have explained how Joker's line where he says, how many timelines are we going to have to mess up before you realize that you're going to have to be the one that dies or something, or before you're not afraid to be the one that dies.
Yeah.
Like, I maybe add that a little bit of context in there. But again, it's a nitpick, because I was fine with it being in there. I wouldn't have missed it if it was gone. I was completely neutral to that scene as far as its presence in the movie. The only reaction that I really get of it is that I'm more pissed at Warner Brothers for what could have been.
Right.
If not,
and he
for
didn't
their
make
administrative fuckery.
He didn't make it the final frame. He filmed that one more scene with Martian Manhunter showing up to Bruce's lake house. And you could tell this scene was not reshot, but one of the recent shootings, because
it was also just kind of thrown in there.
Well, like, yeah, but you could tell it was
like, it was a weird order for it to be in there, honestly.
Well, not really. It was a send-off moment, but you could tell it was a newer shooting, because Ben Affleck is small in that scene. He is definitely not the same weight that he was in the earlier film, but he just wakes up and he sees the Martian Manhunter out there, and Martian Manhunter's like, hey, I've been playing in the shadows this whole time, but we both know that this is not over yet, and I want to join the team. And Bruce is like, cool. So we have our 7, and Martian Manhunter in a lot of the early iterations of the Justice League was part of that original 7.
He was the original.
Right. So
I think before Cyborg got put in there.
So again, just like the moment with him in the hallway, it probably wouldn't have been in the original film, or it could have been a deleted scene or a cut scene. But because this is Zack's send-off, and they gave him so much money to finish this up, and if I was in his position, I would do that too. If I had some money to spare to shoot this scene, it's not like they're going to give him a director's cut to this cut. I would have done whatever the fuck I wanted.
I get it. You're being defensive about something that I think.
No,
is
I'm
okay.
not. I'm not being defensive, because I agree that it doesn't work in the film. I'm just saying that it's I felt like it wasn't meant to. It was just like, this is his send off. I know that if this would have been a theatrical version, it wouldn't have been in there. But
honestly, I think it's inarguable that the most beautiful part of the entire movie was for Autumn at the very end.
Yeah, I like that was the last thing. There was no cut scene or mid-credit scene.
When you realize what this is being for, is for him to finish what he started around that incredibly tragic event.
Right.
And so the result that we got was a great. The fans won in this situation too.
Right. Sure, and, we don't get whatever money he would have made for this went to suicide prevention things. He didn't make any profit off this either. Which makes it a passion project for him, and makes it more for his daughter than it would have been. Is great.
Here's what I would change about that Martian Manhunter scene. Martian Manhunter isn't in it in my change. We got 2 separate big hints towards Green Lantern. Fucking put Green Lantern in there. Like, much more familiar character. People would have identified with him a lot more right away. And you wouldn't have had to change that scene that Martha and Lois have. You just don't have her change into Martian Manhunter at the end. She was just actually there. Like, Put Green Lantern in there. You show him in the battle. You show him again in what I believe is another a premonition, where another Green Lantern has been defeated.
Well, he wouldn't have been in that battle because that was thousands of years ago.
There was absolutely a Green Lantern in that original battle thousands of years ago.
There was,
not the Green Lantern. I'm saying a Green Lantern.
Right. Okay.
Let's get a Green Lantern character in there instead of Martian Manhunter in that final credit scene there. This was like, you guys finished the battle that we started a long time ago, but you did not finish the war. Here I am. Let's finish it this time because they're coming back.
I feel like that would have been more tacked on than this, especially with the fan theories around that general character. Basically, since Man of Steel, people have been theorizing that he's Martian Manhunter. I never understood why, but people have been theorizing since back then that he was that. I felt like this was more of a fan service to them, but the 4 hour.
Honestly, I feel like that Martian Manhunter just changed into that guy because he saw him.
No, he was that guy.
Because isn't that what he does? Doesn't he have the ability to just transform into anything that he sees?
Yeah, but he does live on Earth in a certain form. So the fact that he changed from Martha to his original form and then changes to that general means that that's who he is. Like otherwise, he could have just changed into anybody.
It would have been nice to see that general a little bit more throughout the movie. Because, again,
but he does have his voice.
It does. But it still feels like Martian Manhunter was just kind of thrown in there.
Well, and this is just me hoping that we would get a sequel with an actual Green Lantern, like a better Green Lantern thing.
Yeah, but pipe dreams there.
I know. Well, we're gonna get a Flash movie, and sadly, Cyborg was supposed to be a part of that Flash movie, and I'm hurt, man. I'm hurt every time because I still see there were still headlines today about the WB claiming that all of Ray Fisher's claims aren't true about the thing. And I just know that day is past. We're not going to get another Ray Fisher project in the DC universe. There's no way that those bridges have been burned and torn down and cemented over. It's not going to happen, which is sad because my God, he was so good in this film. And if you look anywhere online, that's what everybody else is saying too. He was the heart of this film, and it is questionable. I mean, I don't know if I can
character in this one. Like,
I don't know if I can outright say that Joss's choices to cut a lot of his stuff was racially motivated. It doesn't look good that the two big scenes that he cut involved people of color. But again, I don't know the behind the scenes of that, so I can't say that for certain. But it just felt wrong that they cut that much out of it, And I know he's a minor character compared to the Trinity, but you could tell that this movie was based around him, And a 4-hour movie definitely gives you the time to develop these characters a lot more than a 2-hour movie. But, the choices that they made were just weird at times. And that he was the heart of this film. And I'm so glad we got to see it because, man, he put a lot of work into it, and Snyder put a lot of work into building him up.
He put a lot of work, and honestly, he earned this character so much in this version.
Can you imagine? I can't even think of the dude that plays him in Titans or whatever. Like this, Ray Fisher is the definitive live action Cyborg for me right now.
Yeah. See?
God. I got Ryan Reynolds getting killed off. Come on now.
So I would have had like the actual actor that they might use for Green Lantern films, but honestly, at this point, I'm really hoping that DC just kind of drops Snyderverse characters as they're as it exists right now.
When we talked about this, yeah.
Like I really wouldn't mind them canceling this Flash movie, because first of all, there's going to be a shitload of controversy around that because Ezra Miller's involved.
Yeah,
they're not going to be able to get around that. The hype around the Snyderverse being continued on as it relates to this cut of the film is going to be next level criticism. There is absolutely zero chance that this movie that the next Flash or another Aquaman movie gets through without an incredible upheaval of fan anger, especially after this. And honestly, like at this point, the money grab is not worth it for DC. That could be a nail in the coffin for their cinematic universe. That would be a real big issue.
It's so weird that
because they're already coming in at a bad point.
Right. I think I mean I get the theories that Flashpoint would be the thing that ends all the Snyder stuff and starts things over. But, do you really want to extend it that long anyway? And then you got all these cries for restore the Snyderverse. It's not happening. I wish there's people like, can we at least get an extension of Batfleck's universe in HBO Max? Yeah, that would be amazing. HBO Max would be the place to do it, but it ain't happening. The original treatment had Kilowog. Oh, yeah. Oh, interesting.
Lantern there.
Well, that's possible. Yeah.
Calling it again.
There's so many things. There's so many ways that HBO Max could benefit from this, especially after what we saw they do with Watchmen. That sequel series was just amazing. I know you haven't seen it yet, but it was fucking amazing.
I need to watch so much stuff.
A Batman series with Ben Affleck and his stories, and a limited series on HBO Max would be great. But it's just, unless AT&T steps in again, according to WB's leadership, it ain't happening, and they're the ones that almost stopped this from happening. So who knows? But apparently, the Warner Media, who's above WB. See, there's HBO Max, there's WB, Warner Media is above them, and then AT&T is above them. So the head of Warner Media apparently is very happy with everything that went down this weekend. But I don't think it's enough to save the Snyderverse. And I'll be really interested to see what happens next, because we've been hearing about Aquaman 2 and Flashpoint and Wonder Woman 3 coming out, but there hasn't been any real progress on that. And as far as I know, there hasn't been any real progress on that. So,
well, if there has been, they've been keeping it incredibly quiet. But I think a big part of that is actually COVID restrictions probably slowing things down.
Oh, for sure.
Making it a lot easier for them to not be getting stuff done.
Yeah. But now that things are starting to pick back up, will they fully commit to that? Will they change? I know the director of Flashpoint is out here saying, people, it's not Flashpoint. He's even trying to get the title changed because he's telling people we are not adapting Flashpoint despite the name. So, I'd hate to the Flashpoint director. The bar has been very much raised. Yeah. Well, he's out here telling people, guys, it's not Flashpoint. We need to stop calling it Flashpoint. And I wouldn't be surprised if he is tasked with some type of movie that ends the Snyderverse. Maybe Momoa sticks around and Gal Gadot sticks around, but they've already talked about Keaton, so clearly they're getting rid of Batfleck. Gal
Gadot has already said that she wants a Wonder Woman 3 to be closure. She's done. Yeah. She doesn't want to keep going. But
because it makes sense.
It does.
I would love a Wonder Woman 3.
3's a good round number.
But I want Wonder Woman like she was in this film. She was on the attack. She was fucking murdering dudes. She wasn't passive aggressive. She wasn't, offense is not something I should do anymore. She was on the offense this whole movie.
This movie also made Wonder Woman 84 suck more. Because it was more references to Steve Trevor and how devastated she was when all that occurred, and then Wonder Woman 84 brings him back and fucks with her feelings in that way, kind of brings him back. It just made it even stupider. And again, where she's not out and about in the world very often, whereas Wonder Woman 84 is this major moment.
Well, and every time they reference that, every time she said, I shut myself up for years and then realized I couldn't do it. We're also talking about, there's a line in this movie where Flash is like, so you think she'd go for a younger man? And Cyborg's like, she's 5,000 years old. Every man's a younger man. I could see that being a slight excuse for Wonder Woman 84. Because that's a person that's old, woman or man or whatever, the time from 1984 to now, it's not going to be that long. It's going to be like a couple years to her in the span of thousands of years. So I understand you got to manipulate your mind around it, but it still kind of makes sense. She put herself off, and then 1984, she started coming back out again. Doesn't make 1984 better. It really doesn't. I still have things in that movie that I really love and that were really good, but the majority of it was really not. But I do prefer her in this movie to that one because she was defense all day in that. And in this one, she had her sword again, and holy shit, she was putting dudes down. Yeah.
She was using it.
What did Brent say? AT&T has been a lot more active in running the show now over the studio heads. Yeah, I mean, that's what happened here.
If the views for this climb or stay steady, you might see more of this. That is completely dependent on AT&T strictly doing stuff for the fans, which has pros and cons. We've seen how out of control shit can go when fans dictate how a movie is written. Rise of Skywalker. It can get nasty pretty fast. But at the same time, I'd be hard pressed to be convinced that Warner Brothers is going to be cooperative with doing things the right way at this point.
Well, you know what? I could give a fuck because they deserve this. Everybody's saying, oh my gosh, I can't believe they spent this kind of money on the Snyder cut. You spent that money on the Joss cut. You told everybody you were bringing in Joss Whedon to just finish up post-production, and then you spent tens of millions of dollars for reshoots that weren't needed and for all this stuff just so Josh could get more of his fingerprints on a movie that didn't need his fingerprints. So This is on you, bro. You deserve that. But, as far as AT&T, in October, was it October or November of 2019, there was a moment that if you want the Snyder Cut, tweet release the Snyder Cut on this day. And I remember even Grace Rudolph was like, I'm hearing it from the inside. This is the day. If you want this, make yourself known. And they were paying attention back then. And that's what got AT&T to make this jump. And honestly, I'm sure they're happy with all the stuff going on. It's been trending. But the thing that's going to make a difference is, how does this equate for HBO Max? I'm waiting for their report. What were the subscription numbers like? It got me to resubscribe. What kind of money does this look like?
I'm more interested to know how many subscribers they lose now that this has been out for a while and people have gotten the chance to see it. How many people signed up for HBO Max just so they could see this movie?
But again, does that matter? That's still money in their pocket. It's just like when people signed up for Disney for a certain property or Hulu for a certain property or Amazon Prime for a certain property. Did this equate into money for them? Whether it was short or long, did people come out and pay for it? And now they have the same guys that were doing the box office reports. Was it the Nielsen numbers or whatever? They now have numbers for streaming. So how is this going to look when they start equating that? Do you think that 1984 from Marillion Moore has been bearing on the fact that I was born in 1984 and Wonder Woman? Jared, you're in your head. You're in your head, bud. Yeah, Brent's right. This is the same scriptwriter as Rise of Skywalker.
Yeah, I didn't have Kathleen Kennedy breathing down his neck. I'm sure that helped out a fucking lot.
And I did notice that they only listed him. His name is Chris Toro or Torrio. They only listed him when I'm pretty sure the 2017 version had what's his name? David S. Goyer attached to it as well.
Chris Terrio.
Chris Terrio. So 2017 version had Chris Terrio and somebody else attached to it. I could have swore that David S. Goyer had a part of it, part of that writing credit. Yeah. But yeah, there's plenty of haters out there. There's plenty of people that look at this movie and says it's just longer. There's no difference. And I'm sorry, but there's plenty of difference. Okay. Let me give you an analogy. I love my Batman comics. One of my favorite ones is from growing up is Batman Hush. Where are you at? Batman Hush. You're somewhere. There's somewhere, and I can't see you. Gosh darn it.
If only you didn't make custom book covers that all have similar text fonts.
That all have similar text fonts. God damn it. It's in here somewhere. I don't know where it is. Anyway, Batman Hush was written by... Oh, you're annoying the shit out... Oh, there it is. Batman Hush was illustrated by the great Jim Lee. It was one of the biggest... the first big projects he did for DC. He came over from Marvel. He was doing some X-Men stuff before. If you want the most beautiful, realistic-looking art, you go to Jim Lee. He has this style that is gorgeous. So much now that he's just in so much high demand, and he's more in the high-ups of DC. He's not on that team anymore. But imagine if you had hired Jim Lee for 4-episode comic series. And then in the third episode, the third issue, he's already done all 4 issues. But at the last second, the DC decides, you know what? We're going to can his version of the third issue. We're going to do this 5th grader over here that can only draw and pencil people in stick figures. We're going to have him do a similar story, but in stick figures. Yes, it's similar, but the tone, the visuals, all of that, the experience is so much different. So when you take the stick figures out, that Joss Whedon brought in, and you return it back to the initial prestige, glorious cut that Zack Snyder did with the matching cinematography, the matching color grades, the no CGI mustache, the humanity, it is a different film. It's a different experience. You can't tell me it's the same film. And I'm telling you right now, I know a friend who hands down was telling me that these trailers make it look like the exact same film. And when he actually saw it, it was a different experience for him. Yep. And he's not a fan. So, I think if he can get through this, a lot of other people can too, if they're willing to try it. You don't have to, but if you're willing to,
Well, I can tell you that one of the big things that I have gone on record as to saying multiple times is that I would really love to see in multiple different formats is the director's original vision for a lot of different movies. I want to see director's cuts for more films because I think it would be great to see what could be done. And honestly, if I could see J.J. Abrams' original vision for the full Star Wars trilogy that didn't have Rian Johnson's interruptions in there, so he didn't have to fix everything with The Rise of Skywalker, I'm sure that because I have similar feelings. I feel like the way it was administrative fuckery that fucked with my favorite franchise and a 3-film sequel trilogy that could have been so much better. It's like, you know what? I have a pretty good feeling based off of The Force Awakens, which is a solid film out of the franchise, that J.J. Abrams had a good vision. He had a good, solid idea for how things would go, which is why he had notes for Rian Johnson. Then Rian Johnson's fucked with it, and higher-ups at Star Wars were like, yeah, that's fine. Go ahead. And then he had to fix everything later. It's like, you know what? I would love to see the original. This is a great example of what the original vision could have been, and it was excellent, because the original version of Justice League that I saw and then rewatched today was messy. It was rushed. There was forced humor. There's a lot of forced, unnecessary comedy. And this version came in and gave us what it solved a lot of the complaints that people had about the original 2017 version. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It gave us a kind of like Armao was saying, Armao, Armayo. I don't know how to say your name. I'm really sorry. He gives it. Yeah, it's a darker world because a darker world was already established.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't this upbeat, comical, cartoony.
It has more weight to it.
Yeah, the stakes are higher. Like the stakes are the same in both movies, but in this one they feel higher. It feels more serious. It feels like there's a lot more risk, and the heroes fail. Like they fail more frequently, and they fail hard when they do. And so when they come together, like it becomes. It's that important element that I've talked about before. When the hero is not a hero the entire goddamn time, it adds to a more compelling film. And in my final thoughts for this, because we're hitting the 2-hour mark, which I know that we could go on and on, but we're already halfway through what the actual movie was.
Yeah.
In my final thoughts, I would hope that this is a strong example of what can happen and what can be when a filmmaker's original vision is left alone and is left to grow. Let the filmmaker, the people who are really putting in the groundwork and really putting in the man hours and all the elbow grease to make a movie are not, a lot of the times they're not doing it just because they're getting paid. The fact that filmmakers that are getting paid are filmmakers who are shocked that they get to do this for a living. They're doing what they are incredibly passionate, in most cases. They're doing what they are incredibly passionate about. And when that administrative fuckery comes in to screw with things, it's like shots in the heart. And that shows up on camera. That shows up on film. That shows up in the final product. Leave the creator's original vision alone, and you get stuff like this. Doesn't always have to be 4 hours long. Filmmakers can go in with an idea that is not quite that long for certain movies. But I don't know. Like if the original Justice League movie had been funded by Netflix, and when Zack Snyder and his family had that tragic event go down, I can almost guarantee that Netflix would have been like, okay, take the time that you need to, come back when you're ready.
Oh yeah, WB was waiting. They were waiting in the wings for a reason.
It'd have been like, you know what? We really don't want to go through all the shit that we would have to reshoot everything. And just fucking take the time off that you need, come back when you're ready, and let's give it a go. Netflix isn't the only example of a studio that would do that, but they're the first one that pops into my head because Netflix is also a great example of what can happen when you let the filmmaker, you let the creators have their original vision out, because Netflix has a great habit of giving people money and saying, all right, fuck off, make a movie, don't talk to us until it's done. It's like, don't show us what's going on. We're not going to get in the way. Make it. Let's see what happens.
I understand, though, how other studios can't afford to do that. And that's perfectly fine. Disney can't afford to just give somebody money and say, go make a Marvel film. They have to be in some type of control. But here's my answer to that, okay? A lot of people are going to twist this around and say, this is what happens when you give the fans control and you let them dictate things. That's not the case here, okay? The WB announced that they were working on these films with Zack Snyder. They told Zack Snyder to go make this movie. They made plenty of yeses on paper before this movie ever happened. It's not like Zack Snyder just went off and did a 4-hour movie in his backyard and WB was like, you did what? You know, they had executives that planned this. And this is what happens when we've seen it time and time before. We saw 20th Century Fox hire Josh Trank for Fan 4-Stick. And they told people, we hired Josh Trank for a Fantastic Four film. And people got excited because they liked Josh Trank. And then what happened? They regretted their decision. Apparently, they didn't talk it out enough with Josh Trank, and at the last second, they went in and pulled the rug underneath him and made for a worse film. Same thing happened with Star Wars. They say, hey, we got Phil Lord and Chris Miller to come out here and do Solo. And apparently they didn't have discussions with them. And at the last second, they pulled the rug out from him and came out with a shit film. So what happened in 2017? They told Zack Snyder to go do a 4-hour movie, which was likely going to be split in two. Then when he did it, instead of committing to it and then finding a way to move on to it, they found the most petty reason to move on from him. They hired the most lazy choice they could get. Oh, let's get the guy that did the Avengers films and have him do the Justice League film. And they gave him boatloads of money and let him do with what he wanted. And what happened? We got a shitty film. So those are 3 examples of major studios interfering after they paraded these creatives in front of everybody. You don't parade if you want a minion, then you get a no-name that a board of executives can tell what to do. But if you get a Phil Lord and Chris Miller, people are going to expect that film. Who's the guy that did Thor Ragnarok? If you get him,
Taika Waititi,
people are going to expect a Taika Waititi film. If you get a Zack Snyder, they're going to expect a Zack Snyder film. So either don't commit to these people if you can't handle it, or fucking take a little more time to talk it out with these people before they film a movie so that you don't look like idiots when you interfere.
Or just understand that shit happens and families need to be able to be families. And don't be an absolute dickhead when a director's daughter kills herself and he wants to have time with his family to mourn and like, just don't be a dickhole about it.
Brent's saying, say what you want about Disney. None of their films have the director stamp. That's true. They don't have that director stamp. But at the same time, and I'm talking about Marvel films, they have a person in between them, in between the creatives and the studio. And that's Kevin Feige. We've talked about this in the past. DC doesn't have that. And Star Wars does have that. And it's Kathleen Kennedy. And I think a lot of us understand that that's not the role that she does best in, and so that's why we had things like Han Solo and all that stuff. But I agree. Marvel, for the most part, man, they got their shit right. And when they had problems, let's not act like they didn't have problems. Iron Man 2, Iron Man 3, Thor 2, Age of Ultron, they had plenty of problems, which, they weren't terrible, but a lot of people were like, yeah, those are lower tier. Well, they course corrected. Thor, even though I love Thor 1, a lot of people didn't like Thor 1 and 2, and they thought that dude was just fucking boring. So they got Taika Waititi to punch him up, to change him around. And while I thought it was a little jarring, a lot of people were like, oh my gosh, I love Thor now. And now Thor is top tier. Thor Ragnarok is huge. So they know how to course correct without burning everything down. DC should have learned how to do that. They want to copy Marvel so much, maybe copy that kind of thing instead of just burn everything to the ground and make a mess of it and then look like the bad guys while you're doing it.
And the reason that we're so hard when we're making the comparisons between the two is because DC has had DC has had a lot longer in a cinematic world, whether you want to count it, like I count the animations that they do. DC has had a lot more history in working in this world. There's no excuse.
There's no excuse for WB to be pulling this shit. But yeah, they're burning this property that is gold or was gold at one point.
Marvel hit the right formula. DC does not have an excuse to still not have it.
And Marvel hit that formula because they were inspired by DC. They announced the first time that they announced, hey, we're launching a Marvel Cinematic Universe and the first film's going to be Iron Man. Guess when that happened? It happened the same year after Batman Begins came out. They saw Batman Begins and said, holy shit, somebody can take superheroes seriously. We got to get on this. So DC inspired them. And then somehow WB fell behind. So stop chasing it, and just know that you have something that you could turn into gold. You just got to take your time with it. And that cat's all about. That cat's like, can you finish up? Can you finish up? We've been talking for 2 hours and 10 minutes. Can you just end this? That's what that cat wants.
Just wait for it.
Well, I think we've talked this to death, man. This with all the conversations we had on our watch parties. Yeah, I think we're good.
We come back to the same thing, but finally we're coming at it from after a positive note. In a DC film.
Yes. At least we had that victory, and man, it was a pretty victory.
Like, we were looking forward to, like, everybody was looking forward to this for so much, and thank fuck that it paid off.
Right.
Because if this had come, God, I can only imagine if this had come out and it hadn't been anywhere near as glorious.
Oh, me too, Brent.
That'd have been rough.
The moment this comes out on IMAX. Which is why that aspect ratio was there for people who still don't understand that. Yeah. That's why that aspect ratio was there. God, that would look that Wonder Woman
put out a
bomb
warning
scene.
So nobody thought that their TV was busted.
That Wonder Woman bomb scene on an IMAX scene would have been just beautiful. So yeah, the moment it comes out on IMAX, I got my COVID shot. I'm going. Yeah. So,
I think in final thoughts, Nerf Herders, we very much enjoyed the Snyder Cut. And I think it is, and I'm pretty sure I speak for Josh in this, that it is a testament of what can happen when you let the filmmaker make the film that they want to do, have some humanity, give them the time that they need in order to make it right. And you end up with a 4-hour. I mean, I don't want to call it a masterpiece because it's not exactly an A+. It's like an A- for me. There's some things that I would change, but not in a world that would make it any better or worse, really. Like, it performed incredibly well.
In comparison, 2017, it's a masterpiece in my book.
Yeah, in comparison, you're setting the bar awful low there, though. Hit the like button if you like this video. We're going to close it out now. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Hit us up in those comments below if you're watching this not live. We appreciate everybody who was being a part of the conversation while we were going. Thank you guys for taking my attentions from my NCAA. I hope you're doing good in your bracket. I know there's a lot of money going around for that. But the fact that you needed a distraction probably tells me all I need to know about how your bracket's going.
Did you see the women's controversy on that? Real quick, just because he brought it up. It's real quick. One of the women on one of the teams tweeted a video that says, "This is our gym," and it's literally just a rack of hand weights, and that's the female gym. And then she takes a picture of the male gym, and it's a whole gymnasium full of weight machines. And the NCAA was like, "Oh, we just didn't have room to give a weight room to the female teams." And it blew up. It was terrible. Good job, NCAA.
Just let him work out in there. What's the difference?
Apparently they can't mix in a gym. I don't know why.
Stupid.
It's dumb.
All right. Hit the like button if you like this. Hit the dislike button if you didn't. Be honest, we can take it. Take 2 on an outro. Be sure to hit us up in those comments if you're not watching this live and you're catching it later. Definitely hit the subscribe button so you know that you're not going to miss any of our future episodes. Once again, this is the Nerf Herders Assemble podcast. My name's Seth Jones. This is Joshua Howell. Joshua Howell's over there, actually.
This guy.
Until next time,